Hello, sports fans. Thanks for sticking with me. Here we go. Chapter 7, The Routine. One day, Ray came up and asked Bobby an unusual question. Tio, how can I be a tough guy like you? Tough guy? Bobby repeated in shock. Don't you know all the tough guys are dead or in prison? Why on earth would you want to be a tough guy? Well, I heard some people say that you are the toughest SOB they have ever known. I want to be like that, Raymond said. That threw Bobby for a loop that he did not see coming. While he made no apologies for how he had lived his life, neither did he recommend his dangerous lifestyle for anyone else. Do you have any idea what it takes to be known as a tough guy? He asked, smiling. I just know that I want people to respect me the way they respect you. Do you think that respect comes from my hurting people, or is it because people feel safe when I'm around? Do people fear me or respect me is the real question here. I'm curious. What do you think? Bobby asked. I'm not sure. Maybe a little of both, I guess, Raymond shrugged. Fair enough. Bottom line is, most people are nice to me, so I must be doing something right. He laughed. Either way, we do need to get you into better physical condition. If you want to join the Marines and me for morning PT, I suggest you show up at 6 o'clock on the tennis court and we can get you started. Sure enough, the next morning Ray showed up in his baggy shorts and fancy basketball shoes. Bobby gestured for him to line up alongside of him in the back of the exercise formation. All right, girls, let's get started. The Marines take their physical conditioning very seriously, just like their marksmanship. These are skills that keep Marines alive, and nothing is more important than that. The gunny called the cadence, and the men called the count. 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 2. And on it went. It became obvious that he was struggling from the start. In less than 10 minutes, he was off the grinder having his first case of exercise-induced vomiting. After that was done, he wiped his mouth and looked around at a group that didn't seem to notice or care what had just happened. He didn't think he would be missed as he left the formation quietly. After morning PT, Bobby had to pay up for the wager that Ray wouldn't last 10 minutes. The next day, Bobby got most of his money back just for Raymond showing up. He was in the back row, ready to try again. That brought a smile he would never see from some very hard men. This time he lasted more than 15 minutes before he got sick to his stomach. For an out-of-shape and chubby 14-year-old, he was earning the respect of the other men the only way respect is ever earned, by doing what they do. During the first week, the young man lost some pounds and was mostly ignored. He was allowed to join the Marines for PT, but he was not one of them yet. He stopped puking by the second week and was doing better each day. At the end of the month, he was no longer doughboy, as he had toughened up and lost weight, and the baby fat turned to muscle. He became Recruit Wilson. Bobby had to explain that for a civilian, that was as good as it would ever get. Will I ever earn the Marines' respect, Tio? Not until you can shoot. When will that be? Soon, mijo. Very soon, I hope. That was on Friday. On Saturday, they had loaded up the guns and 4 Marines in the Embassy Suburban to go shooting. Nothing is more important to the Marines than being competent with their rifles, unless it's their physical conditioning or beer and pussy. There is never a prize for these contests, just bragging rights and side bets. To people whose very survival could depend on their shooting, keeping those perishable skills honed to a fine edge is very important. Outside of town, they found a side road behind the airport that went out to some small hills into the federal capital territory. That looks like a good place to bust some caps, said Master Sergeant Miller. As large and as Irish as they come, Miller had done 2 tours in recon. They don't get any harder than that, Bobby thought, or much bigger. As they pulled out the gun cases and ammo boxes, Ray didn't know what to do. He wanted to be helpful, but he didn't quite know how. Tio, he asked, what should I do? Well, Ray, if you know what is needed, then do it. If you don't know what to do, ask. He looked around and saw Miller. Sergeant Miller, what can I do to help? Recruit Wilson, everything in that vehicle has to come out. The sooner we get unpacked, the sooner we can start shooting. Yes, sir, I'm on it, was the muffled reply from the back of the SUV. How many ballistic bags of gear and ammo cans do we need, the apprentice warrior thought. He started to pick up a 50 caliber ammo can and almost fell over. It must have weighed over 60 pounds, and Doug only weighed a little over 100. He was doing his best when one of the Marines grabbed the handle and dragged him and the heavy can out of the SUV like it was a sleeping bag. Once the bags and rifle cases were out, weapons were checked and cleared, with a concern that was almost nurturing. "All right, people, let's see if you remember which end the little round thing comes out of," said Master Sergeant Miller. "Wilson, get those targets out there about 100 meters. "What targets, T.O.?" Raymond asked. "See that plastic trash bag?" "Yeah." "Take the empty cans and run them out about 100 yards, then place the empties where they can be seen," Miller instructed. "Okay, I'll be right back," Raymond said. Raymond got back and helped the Marines load magazines for what seemed like an eternity, but was only about 5 minutes. "Anybody gets shot, both the dumbass shooter and the dumbass deceased will be buried here," Miller laughed. "Now let's see who is shaking like a whore in church and who shoots like a Marine. Step up, boys. Try not to shoot yourselves." The first shooter was Spaz. He took a moment to get centered and comfortable. Shooting offhand is never easy, and neither is getting shot in combat. He took his time hitting 10 of the 20 shots in his magazine. Miller told him to reload and get back in line after being dropped for 20 push-ups. The next shooter was Tech Boy. He hit 11 of 20 and was rewarded with "Not bad for some Navy puke, but we're Marines and that is not good enough. Drop." Gypsy was the third shooter. He hit 9 shots and was booed and catcalled for his poor performance. "That will cost you 20. Drop and count them out." While he was counting out the push-ups, Master Sergeant Miller stepped up and with no fanfare or preparation, put 15 rounds into the cans, making them dance and jump around in the dirt. "Not bad. I've done better. That will have to do for now," Miller commented. "What about you, Mr. O'Shaughnessy? You going to sit there and watch us, or did you come to shoot?" "I think I'm going to shoot, Sarge, unless you're worried a civilian maggot such as me will make you look bad," Bobby good-naturedly taunted. "I got a case of beer that says you don't hit 13, Mr. O'Shaughnessy. Now what?" Miller laughed. "You're on, Sarge, but please call me Bob." "I can't do that, Mr. O. You're a member of the embassy staff, and our orders are to treat you as officers, sir." He was now trying really hard not to laugh and was not hiding it really well. Now it was time to show that the years of big game hunting and the thousands of 22s put into squirrels back home were not a waste of time. Bob had put a lot of rounds downrange over the years and more than a few deer in the freezer. His sniper father had taught his son well, and it showed. With that, Bobby took his turn to shoot. He got into his bubble. All the surrounding sights and sounds disappeared. All that was left was his target, the sights, and the contact point of his finger on a trigger connecting his entire central nervous system. Everything else to making the shot was turned off or shut down. This included, but was not limited to, blinking, breathing, muscle tension, anxiety, what's crawling down my neck and up my ass, missing the shot, and last but not least, failing to earn the respect of the Marines he came with. Trying to deal with any of these distractions while trying to execute precision marksmanship is impossible. That's why shooters get into their private bubble where the outside world is far away and not to be noticed. Bobby took his time and shot 13 cans. Miller was impressed but hit it well. "What kind of beer will we be having, sir?" "I didn't know Marines were so picky, Sarge." Bobby was grinning a lot for someone that had been bested in the contest. Now that he had some competition, it was time to put on his game face. This was Bobby's favorite thing in the whole world, a serious challenge that would stretch his abilities. "Don't worry, sir. I want to give you a chance to get even. These boys are thirsty and you look a mite parched yourself." By now, Miller had a grin that no one present could remember seeing. He also had a challenge from a man that looked like he could be respectable. After that, they shot from seated, and Bobby was even after that round. It was his favorite position. He had learned it from his father many years ago. Shooting prone is surgical. New cans were moved out to 200 meters. At this range, the front sight actually covers the can itself. The shooter has to visualize the target and hold the sights on an imaginary point that allows for wind drift and bullet drop. Miller shot 16 of 20 and challenged Bobby to double or nothing to shoot 15 of 20. Never one to turn down a chance to lighten someone's wallet, Bobby accepted the challenge with a smile. Bobby took his time and got a good sight picture for each shot. He was surprised by most of his shots, which meant they were nice, clean trigger break. He hit the necessary 15 of 20, asking the NCO, "Looks like we're even, Sarge. You willing to let it go with that?" "Not on your ass, sir," Miller told him. "That's what I figured. What do you say we close this show? 2 cases of beer?" "Excellent idea, sir. How do you propose as a tiebreaker?" "How about your sidearm, Sarge? You any good with that Beretta?" I think we are about to find out, sir. What about you? I got this old Colt 1911 from my daddy. It works okay. Bobby was about to fall over from the strain of trying not to laugh from the sheer fun of this hustle. Mr. Bob's old M1911A1 was no longer even close to original. It had been sent to Gunsight Ranch to be slimlined to fit Bobby's small hands, given a trigger job, beaver tail safety, beveled magazine well, night sights that glowed in the dark, ported for faster follow-up shots and smoothed for concealed carry. Of course, Master Sergeant Miller thought that he was going to be drinking some free beer very soon, too. How about some close-quarter battle? CQB with our pistols, Bobby innocently suggested. The nods and grins from the Marines left the Master Sergeant unable to decline. Okay, Sarge, I picked the targets. It's only fair if you pick the course of fire. We can shoot side by side, or each man shoots both targets for time, Bobby offered. What do you say 2 shots to the chest each, 1 in the head twice, with a magazine change in between, the old El Presidente as we call it, the Master Sergeant challenged. Sounds fair to me. What's your best range, Sarge? What do you think? About 7 yards. That's 21 feet. How's that work for you? He thought that Bobby could probably blaze at 5 yards, but not 7. The extra distance would force him to slow down and be more accurate. At least that was the plan. We all know what Mike Tyson says about having a plan. Everyone has a plan till they get hit. Flip to see who shoots, sir, the sergeant asked. Please, Sarge, show me how it's done. One other thing. If I win, you have to call me Bob. And if I win, the NCO asked, what do you want? From you, sir, if I win? Calling me Sean will do just fine. No one else calls me that, so I'll always know it's you. Fair enough. Let's do this. Go ahead, Master Sergeant. What do I need to beat? The veteran NCO took his time and did a few practice presentations for a quick sight picture. He brought his pistol up to his sight line several times until he was satisfied that he was ready. You good to go? Bobby asked. Yeah, who has a watch? Miller asked. Well, I think I can help with that, Bobby laughed. Reaching into his shooting bag, he came up with a packed timer that they use in competitions. It is accurate down to a gnat's ass. I think I may have been had, Miller sighed as he chuckled. Go ahead, Sarge, let's get this over with. Bobby was trying really hard not to laugh out loud. Here goes. And at the beep, the big Master Sergeant raised his Beretta 92 and calmly put 2 quick shots into each chest area and 1 in the head. Smoothly changing the magazine, he did a slight shift with his pistol and repeated the drill into the 2 targets again, keeping his shots well into the center mass. That was 11:77 seconds, Sarge. You want to go with that, or do you want a do-over? Bobby teased. I don't know, Miller answered. I may be able to take a 10th or 2. The targets were taped and the big man took up his shooting stance. Legs apart shoulder width and shooting hand down to his side. His first shot was even faster, and his transition to the second target saved 0.2 of a second. 11:49, Sarge, the timekeeper called. I think that's about as good as I'm going to do today. All right, Mr. O'Shaughnessy, let's see what you can do. Bobby knew that this was his chance to earn the respect of the men who were entrusted with his safety. He had been waiting for this opportunity all day, and now it was here. He could silence all the comments or be the joke of the embassy. He stepped up and took a few moments to find that still moment, where time seemed to slow down just a tick that told him he was ready. He took 2 long breaths and, without thinking about it too much, nodded that he was ready. At the signal, Bobby raised his arm and broke his first shot before his left hand was even properly wrapped in support of his shooting hand. As his hands came together and locked into position, his speed increased. He smoothly changed mags while keeping his eyes on the target. The sounds of his next shots were so close together that everyone knew he had to have missed. Jesus H. Christ, boys. Looks like we have fucking Wyatt Earp with us today. God damn, man, where did you learn to fucking shoot like that? 9:71 seconds? Can't be possible, is it? Miller laughed. Is that your best? Is there a little more in there? I don't know, Sean, but I think that's good enough for today, don't you? Bobby was grinning like a fool and enjoying the moment. Unless you want to go double or nothing on the beer. No, I'm going to quit while I still have my shirt. I feel like I've been set up. Was that a setup, Bob? Now, how could a civilian puke like me ever best the USMC, Sarge? I just got lucky. You sure you don't want to try it again? He asked with a touch of sarcasm and mischief in his voice. Take that hustle somewhere else, my man. 2 cases of beer are all you're getting from me today, Miller told him. And with that, everyone had a good laugh. No one could remember a time when a master sergeant was the butt of a joke, but that made it even funnier. These are the moments that bond a group. There has to be a private history that only those who are there can share. That is why the Fraternity of Warriors is a very exclusive club, open only to those who are willing to pay the price for membership, which can turn out to be a high price indeed. As it usually happens, men that have taken each other's measure end up in a position of mutual respect. The veteran warriors shook hands and looked at each other, knowing that here is someone they can count on. On their way back, the cold pack of beer between the seats was just enough to wet their whistles and prevent dehydration. The Marines were entering the city limits when they were stopped at a police checkpoint. The local cops stood in the road looking formidable and angry. Seeing the van loaded with white people, the cops knew this was going to be a good, read profitable payday. The older of the two stuck his head in the window, smiling at his unexpected good fortune. He smelled the gunpowder and oil from the still warm firearms. Suddenly, the good-natured smiling ended, and he drew his gun, screaming and waving it at the Marines. "Easy, boys. Let's not get shot over some kind of silly misunderstanding," Bobby said softly. "Everyone slowly put your hands in plain sight," Miller commanded. "What seems to be the problem, officer?" Bobby asked in tones designed to put the highly agitated man at ease. "Guns. You have guns in your car," the man stammered. "Yes, we did some shooting earlier. Is there a problem?" Bobby asked. "You are prohibited from having any guns. You must give them to me." "That is not going to happen, my friend. I'm sorry." Bobby's voice was no longer friendly. He knew a shakedown when he saw it. "You will give me all your guns or you will be arrested," the man said, shaking very mad. "How about we call my good friend Lieutenant Bando and see what he says?" Bobby inquired with the tone of an adult speaking to a child. "No, you will give me your guns now," the seriously upset policeman ordered. "Let's see what my friend says about that," Bobby commented. He slowly took out the business card and dialed the number from his embassy-issued cell phone. It only took seconds for his new friend to answer. "Mr. Bob, so nice of you to call. I hope everything is well." "Lieutenant Bando, thank you for taking my call. I know you are a very busy man, and I'm sorry to bother you." "Nonsense. I'm always happy to help a friend. What can I do for you?" "Well, we just entered the city limits, and 2 of your officers are holding us at gunpoint, demanding our guns." "Guns? I thought we agreed that it was not legal for you to carry a gun in town." "The Marines and I were outside of town in the territories target shooting. They stopped us at a checkpoint for some unknown reason and smelled the gunpowder, I think," Bob explained. "Checkpoint? I know of no checkpoint in this district," the lieutenant said with a note of surprise. "I'm afraid so. Now I'm also afraid that I need your help." "Not a problem, my friend. Would you please hand the phone to the senior of the 2 officers?" What transpired next is open to the imagination, but the results were very clear. The man on the phone saluted before hanging up. The senior officer approached with a completely different attitude and body posture. "I'm sorry, sir. There has been a mistake. I have been instructed to escort your group into town and to make sure you arrive safely." "Well, thank you, officer. That would be very nice," Bobby replied. As an issue of diplomacy, the drawn guns were not mentioned. Neither was the dressing down that both officers received for their actions. The group took off with the ancient police jeep leading the way. It was so old that Bobby was concerned it might break down and they would run into it. As they passed the turnoff for the Black Cat, the Marines made a sharp turn, headed for what all Marines are experts at, finding liquor and whores. They entered the Black Cat like returning heroes home from the wars. Mr. Lopez was the first to see them. "Amigo, so nice to see you again. I see you brought some friends with you." "These are Marines from the U.S. Embassy, Joe, and they are now your friends too," Bobby replied with his usual mischievous grin. "In that case, let me buy all my new friends a drink," Mr. Lopez said to the cheers of Miller and the others, and with that the party started. "Gentlemen," Mr. Lopez yelled over the din, "allow me to share with y'all a local favorite from back home. Mr. O'Shaughnessy, would you please pop some shot glasses into the freezer while I am mixing?" "Of course, my friend. What are you making?" Bobby asked. "This, amigo, is an absolute blue. It's a little something we'd like to celebrate with back home." "In that case, I must learn how to make this drink." "Here, let me show you how we do this. You take 6 parts of vodka and 2 parts blueberry schnapps with a dash of blue curacao and mix them over ice. Then you pour them into frozen shot glasses. Are the shot glasses frozen yet?" "I think so, my expert friend," Bobby told him. "Good. Now let's test the product." The Frosty shot glasses were filled, and he and Joe clinked glasses and tossed back the contents. "Now that was tasty and refreshing," Bobby remarked. "Glad to see it passed quality control." Little Joe laughed even harder. "Let's see if practice really does make perfect." So with a pre-mixed bottle of Absolute Blues in one hand, Bobby and his new buddy presided over one of the best parties seen in the Black Cat in a long time. As for the Marines, it was the best party they had since being in Nigeria. They had been socially isolated and had not made many friends. This was about to change. Bobby and his new best friend Sean had each other in a headlock, as drunken new best friends often do. "Will you drink to my being Irish?" Sean asked. "Only if you will drink to my being half Irish," Bobby countered. Since most Irish are insane, alcoholic wankers of dubious parentage, being half Irish is probably more Irish than most people that claim to be Irish. And with that, they broke up into hysterical laughing and giggling. By midnight, the party was starting to slow down. The local girls had made their rounds, and the Marines were ready to call it a night. They had their fill of both women and alcohol, at least for the time being. The Marines were so drunk that they did not notice the two policemen from the checkpoint standing near the doorway. When they did finally notice them, Bobby was concerned they might have come to cause them trouble or worse, and Bob was in no mood for trouble. Nothing prepared Bobby for when the senior officer asked, "Are you ready to go home, sir?" Bobby was a little surprised. "Sure. Can you call us a taxi, please?" "Mr. O'Shaughnessy, I have been instructed by Lieutenant Bando to escort you and your friends home safely." "Well, in that case, let's get going," Bobby told him.